The great hall of Myong San Palace stretched so high that clouds drifted through its upper chambers. Crystal pillars held up a ceiling decorated with 3,000 years of history, each tile telling a story of conquest, wisdom, and power. At the center of this magnificent space sat a throne carved from a single piece of diamond, and on that throne sat Daesung, the Dragon King. He looked tired. The servants brought in the evening feast, as they did every night. 20 dragons carried golden platters piled high with delicacies from across the known world. There were fruits that grew only once every 100 years, meat from creatures that no longer existed, wines aged for centuries in volcanic caves. The smell alone would drive any creature mad with hunger. Daesung stared at the food with empty eyes. "Your Majesty," said Jaiwan, the head healer, stepping forward with concern written across her scale face. "You must eat something. It has been 6 months since you finished a proper meal." The Dragon King did not respond. He simply waved his massive claw, and the servants understood. They took the food away, untouched, just like yesterday and the day before that. The council members who stood along the walls exchanged worried glances. Their king was fading. His once brilliant blue scales had dulled to a cloudy gray. The fire that usually danced in his eyes had reduced to barely a flicker. Most concerning of all, when he breathed, only thin wisps of smoke came from his nostrils instead of the powerful flames that had once lit up entire skies. Miho, the young dragon prince and Daesung's nephew, could not stay silent any longer. He stepped forward, his green scales shimmering with youth and energy. "Uncle, please. The kingdom needs you strong. What troubles you so deeply that you cannot eat?" Daesung finally spoke, his voice like distant thunder. "Miho, when you have lived for 3,000 years, when you have tasted every flavor, seen every sight, heard every sound, and conquered every challenge, what is left? I sit on this throne and feel nothing. The finest foods taste like ash in my mouth, not because they are poorly made, but because I have eaten them 10,000 times before." "But surely," Miho started. "There is nothing new under the sun," Daesung interrupted. "Nothing surprises me. Nothing delights me. Nothing makes me feel anything. I am tired, nephew. Not in body, but in spirit." Jaiwan approached the throne carefully. She had served as a royal healer for 800 years and had seen many things, but never this. "Your Majesty, I have examined you thoroughly. Your body is healthy. Your organs function perfectly. This is not a physical illness." "I know," Daesung said quietly. "It is worse. It is the illness of existing too long." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Dragons prided themselves on their immortality. It was what made them superior to all other creatures. To hear their king speak of it as a curse was deeply unsettling. An old dragon named Young-ho, who had served on the council for 2,000 years, cleared his throat. "Perhaps what our king needs is not food, but purpose, a new quest, a new challenge." Daesung laughed, but there was no joy in it. "A quest? I have mapped every corner of this world. I have solved every riddle. I have defeated every worthy opponent. What quest could possibly matter to me now?" The hall fell into heavy silence. Outside the massive windows, the sun was setting, painting the clouds in shades of orange and pink. Once, Daesung would have found such a sight beautiful. Now he barely noticed it. That was when a small dragon, barely 200 years old and working as a messenger, hurried into the hall. He looked nervous about interrupting such a serious gathering, but he had news. "Forgive me, your Majesty," the messenger said, bowing low. "There is a merchant at the gates. He has traveled from the valleys below and requests an audience. He says he has something that might interest court." "Send him away," Daesung said without interest. "Wait," Miho said. "Uncle, what harm can it do to hear what he has to say? Perhaps it will at least pass the time." Daesung sighed a long, weary sound. "Fine, let him enter." The merchant was a small dragon, a trader who traveled between different territories buying and selling unusual items. He bowed deeply before the throne, clearly intimidated by the gathered nobles. "Your Majesty, great Dragon King, I come with tales from the valleys below, from the lands where the small ones live." "The small ones?" asked Miho. "You mean humans?" Yes, young prince. I trade with them sometimes. They make interesting trinkets. The merchant pulled out various human-made items. Simple clay pots, woven baskets, carved wooden figures. The council members snorted with derision. Human crafts were crude compared to dragon artistry. But the merchant continued, undeterred. What interests me most about the small ones is not what they make, but how they live. They have such short lives, you see. Barely 100 years, if they are lucky. Yet I have never seen creatures more fascinated by their own existence. This caught Daesung's attention slightly. Explain. Well, Your Majesty, they celebrate everything. The changing of seasons, the birth of a child, the harvest of crops. They gather together to share meals and tell stories. They laugh and cry over the smallest things. I watched a human child spend an entire afternoon excited about a butterfly. A butterfly? Can you imagine? They are simple-minded, Young Ho said dismissively. They find these things exciting because they know nothing better. Perhaps, the merchant said carefully, or perhaps they understand something we have forgotten. They live like every moment matters because for them, it does. Daesung stared at the merchant for a long moment. You suggest I could learn something from creatures that live and die in what I consider a short nap? I suggest nothing, Your Majesty. I merely share what I have observed. The small ones have a saying, the soup tastes best when shared with friends. I do not fully understand it, but they seem to find great meaning in such simple ideas. After the merchant left, the hall remained quiet. Finally, Miho spoke up. Uncle, perhaps we should investigate this. The merchant may be onto something. If these humans find joy in simplicity, maybe there is something we have overlooked in our pursuit of perfection and grandeur. You want me, the Dragon King, to learn from humans? Daesung asked. No, Uncle. I want you to want to live again. If there is even the smallest chance that observing these creatures might spark something in you, is it not worth trying? What we have to lose? Daesung closed his eyes. He was so tired. Tired of feeling nothing. Tired of endless days that meant nothing. Tired of being immortal. Go then, he finally said. Go to the valleys below. Observe these humans. See if their simple joys hold any truth. Report back to me what you find. I will not hope for much, but I will not stop you from trying. Miho bowed deeply, relief flooding through him. It was not much, but it was the first time in months that his uncle had shown interest in anything at all. As the prince left to prepare for his journey, Jaiwan approached the throne once more. Do you truly think humans might have an answer? She asked quietly. Daesung opened his eyes and looked at her. No, he said honestly, but I have tried everything else. What harm can come from one more disappointment? Outside, night had fallen completely. The stars appeared in the sky, the same stars Daesung had watched for 3,000 years. He wondered if humans, with their brief lives, looked at those same stars and saw something different. He wondered if they still found them beautiful. For the first time in months, Daesung felt something small and fragile in his chest. It was not hope, not exactly, but it was something. It was curiosity. Miho stood at the edge of the floating palace, looking down at the valleys below. From this height, the human villages looked like tiny dots scattered across the green landscape. He had never been down there before. Dragons rarely visited human settlements. There was simply no reason to. He transformed his body, shrinking his massive form into something that resembled a human. It was an uncomfortable feeling, being so small and fragile. His scales became skin, his wings disappeared into his back, and his powerful claws became simple hands. He looked at his reflection in a pool of water and saw a young man with dark hair and curious eyes. Good enough. The flight down took only minutes, but Miho chose to walk the last portion of the journey. He wanted to observe humans as they truly were, not frighten them with his arrival. The dirt road beneath his feet felt strange. Dragons did not walk much. They flew everywhere. Each step was a new sensation. As he approached the village called Hanul, the first thing that struck him was a noise. Humans were loud. They called each other across streets, laughed together in groups, and their children ran everywhere making high-pitched sounds of joy. It was chaotic and disorganized and completely different from the quiet dignity of the Dragon Palace. The village itself was simple. Small houses made of wood and stone lined narrow streets. Smoke rose from chimneys. The smell of cooking food drifted through the air, mixed with the scent of earth and growing things. It was not unpleasant, just very different. Miho walked slowly, watching everything. An old woman swept her doorstep and smiled at him. A group of children chased a ball made of wrap cloth. Two men argued loudly about the best way to fix a fence, but they were both laughing. Everyone seemed to be doing something, and more importantly, everyone seemed to care about what they were doing. Then he smelled it, something warm and savory that made his stomach react in a way he had not expected. He followed the scent to a small building with steam rising from its windows. A wooden sign hung above the door with simple writing, Juno's Soup House. Miho pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was small and crowded. Wooden tables filled the space, and nearly every seat was taken. Humans of all ages sat together, bent over bowls of soup, talking and eating. The warmth hit him immediately, not just from the cooking fire, but from something else he could not quite name. Behind a counter stood a young man stirring a large pot. He had kind eyes and quick hands, and he moved with the confidence of someone who had done this work many times before. This must be Juno. Welcome, friend. Juno called out with a bright smile. Find any seat you can. I will bring you soup shortly. Miho squeezed into a spot at a table where an elderly man and a young woman were already eating. They both nodded at him in greeting, not suspicious or afraid, just accepting his presence naturally. First time here? The old man asked. His face was deeply wrinkled, and his hair was completely white. I am Hyun. This is Yunbai, our village teacher. Yes, first time, Miho said carefully, still getting used to speaking in human language. I am traveling through... Ah, traveler, Yunbai said with interest. She had intelligent eyes and an easy manner. You chose the right place to stop. Juno makes the best soup in 3 valleys. Before Miho could respond, a young woman emerged from the kitchen carrying bowls. She had the same kind eyes as Juno and moved with similar grace. She placed a bowl in front of Miho with a warm smile. That is Sora, Juno's sister, Hyun explained. She grows most of the vegetables they use. Has the best garden in the village. Miho looked down at the bowl. The soup was simple. He could see vegetables floating in clear broth. There were pieces of mushroom, some greens, chunks of potato, and thin slices of what might be meat. Steam rose from the surface, carrying that same smell that had drawn him inside. He picked up the spoon, feeling clumsy with these human hands, and took a sip. The taste was unexpected. It was not complex or exotic. There were no rare ingredients or elaborate spices, but there was something else in it, something he had never tasted in any dragon feast. It was warm, yes, but beyond that, it felt like comfort, like safety, like home, though he had never thought of his palace as home before. Good, is it not? Hyun said, watching Miho's expression with amusement. It is different, Miho said honestly. Juno does not just cook food, Yunbai explained, taking another spoonful of her own soup. He cooks memories. That is what my mother used to say. Every pot carries the feeling of the person who made it. Miho watched Juno across the room. The young man was serving an elderly woman now, and he took the time to ask about her health, to listen to her response, to smile at her answers. He did this with each customer, not rushing, not treating it as a transaction, but as a connection. How long has he been doing this? Miho asked. 5 years since he took over from his father. Hyun said. His father ran the soup house before him, and his grandmother before that. 3 generations of the same recipe, the same care. A child at another table laughed loudly at something his mother said. An old couple in the corner ate in comfortable silence, their hands occasionally touching across the table. A group of workers came in, dirty from the fields, and their faces lit up when they saw the soup waiting for them. Miho realized something then. This place was not just about food. It was about people. These humans came here not just to fill their stomachs, but to be together, to share their day, to feel part of something. He thought about the Dragon Palace with its grand halls and perfect silence. No one laughed there. No one touched each other's hands across tables. No one came together just to be together. Everything was formal, structured, ancient. Sora returned to refill his bowl, without him asking. "You look thoughtful," she said with a gentle smile. "Good soup does that sometimes." "Why?" Miho asked suddenly. "Why does your brother do this? Surely there are easier ways to live." Sora tilted her head, considering the question. "Juno says that cooking for others is how he shows love. Our lives are short, you see. We do not have forever. So we must find meaning in what we do each day. For my brother, meaning is in feeding people, in giving them a moment of warmth and comfort." "Your lives are short," Miho repeated quietly. "Does that frighten you?" "Sometimes," Sora admitted, "but mostly it makes every day more precious. We do not take things for granted the way we might if we had endless time." Miho finished his second bowl slowly, tasting it differently now. He understood what yunbai meant about memories. He could taste the care in it. The vegetables had been chosen carefully. The broth had been simmered patiently. The seasoning had been adjusted with attention. But more than that, it had been made with intention. This was what his uncle was missing. Dragons created elaborate feasts to show their skill, their wealth, their power. But humans made simple soup to show their care. As the evening went on, Miho stayed and watched. He saw how people relaxed here, how their faces softened, how they spoke more freely. The soup house was not just a place to eat. It was a place to belong. Juno eventually came to sit at his table during a quiet moment. "You have been watching very carefully," he said with a curious smile. "Are you a cook yourself?" "No," Miho said, "but I am trying to understand something. You make people happy with such simple food. How?" Juno thought about this. "I think happiness comes from feeling cared for. When I cook, I think about the people who will eat it. I remember that someone's grandmother taught them to love soup. I remember that someone is tired from working all day. I remember that someone is eating alone and needs to feel less lonely. The soup is just soup, but the intention behind it, that is what people taste." Miho felt something shift in his understanding. His uncle was not sick in body. He was sick in spirit, because nothing was made with intention anymore. Everything in the dragon world was about perfection, not about purpose. "Would you?" Miho started, then stopped. What he was about to ask was strange. Possibly impossible. "Would I what?" Juno asked kindly. "Would you be willing to cook for someone very important? Someone who has forgotten what it means to taste food made with care?" Juno looked at him with those kind, thoughtful eyes. "I would cook for anyone who is hungry," he said simply. "That is what this soup house is for." Miho smiled for the first time since arriving. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for his uncle after all. Miho waited until the soup house closed for the night. The last customers had left, and Juno was cleaning the tables with slow, tired movements. Sora was washing bowls in the back, humming a soft tune. It was time to reveal the truth. "Juno," Miho said quietly, "I need to tell you something. I am not what I appear to be." Juno looked up from wiping a table, curiosity replacing the tiredness in his eyes. "Oh." Miho took a deep breath. There was no gentle way to say this. "I am a dragon. My real name is Miho, and I am the nephew of the Dragon King who rules from the palace in the clouds." For a long moment, Juno just stared at him. Then he laughed nervously. "That is a strange joke, friend." Miho raised his hand, and suddenly small green flames danced across his fingers. His eyes flashed with an inner light that no human could produce. The air around him shimmered with heat. Juno dropped his cleaning cloth. Sora came running from the kitchen, drawn by her brother's gasp of surprise. When she saw the flames, she grabbed Juno's arm tightly. "Please do not be afraid," Miho said quickly, extinguishing the flames. "I mean you no harm. I came to your village because my uncle, the Dragon King, is dying." "Dying," Sora whispered. "But dragons are immortal." "Our bodies are," Miho explained, "but spirits can still fade. My uncle has lived for 3,000 years. He has lost his will to continue. He will not eat. He feels nothing anymore. I came here looking for something that might help him, and I found your soup house." Juno shook his head slowly, trying to understand. My soup house? How could that possibly help a Dragon King? Because your soup made me feel something I have never felt before, Miho said. In the Dragon Palace, everything is grand and perfect and cold. But here, in this small room, I felt warmth. Not from the fire, but from the care you put into your cooking. My uncle needs that. He needs to taste food made with intention, not perfection. You want me to cook for the Dragon King? Juno's voice rose with disbelief. I am just a village cook. I make simple soup. Dragons eat delicacies from across the world. What could I possibly offer him? Everything the world cannot, Miho said firmly. That is exactly the point. Sora stepped forward, her fear fading into something else. Juno, if a dragon prince came all this way to find you, maybe this is important. Maybe this is your purpose. Purpose? Juno laughed, but there was no humor in it. My purpose is to feed our village. I cannot abandon them to cook for creatures I do not understand. It would only be for a short time, Miho said. A few days at most. Please, Juno. My uncle is the only family I have left. I am watching him fade away, and I do not know how to save him. Your soup is the first thing that has given me hope. Juno looked at his sister. Sora met his eyes and nodded slowly. Father always said our cooking was meant to heal people, she said softly. Maybe that includes Dragon Kings. The next morning, Hyun came to the soup house to find it closed. He knocked on the door, worried, and Juno let him in. The old man listened to the entire story with wide eyes, occasionally glancing at Miho with a mixture of fear and wonder. This is a great honor, Hyun said finally, but also a great danger. Dragons are powerful beings. If something goes wrong... I know, Juno said, but I have to try. If my cooking can help someone who is suffering, how can I refuse? Then go with my blessing, Hyun said, placing a weather hand on Juno's shoulder, and come back safely. The journey to the Dragon Palace was terrifying. Miho transformed back into his true form, and Juno had to ride on his back as they flew up through the clouds. Juno kept his eyes closed most of the way, his hands gripping Miho's scales tightly. When they finally landed in the palace courtyard, Juno opened his eyes and immediately wished he had kept them closed. The palace was massive beyond imagination. The pillars were wider than his entire house. The doors were tall enough for giants. Everything gleamed with precious stones and metals. Dragons walked through the halls on business, and every single one of them stopped to stare at the small human in their midst. Their eyes were not friendly. Why is there a human here? Demanded a large red dragon with a scarred face. I brought him, Miho said firmly. He is a guest of the royal family. A human? A guest? The red dragon laughed harshly. Has the prince lost his mind? Other dragons gathered, their voices rising in protest. Juno felt very small and very afraid. These creatures could destroy him with a single breath. What had he been thinking? Coming here. Then a voice like thunder silenced everyone. Enough! The crowd parted, and through them walked the Dragon King himself. Daesung was even larger than Miho. His scales a dull gray that might once have been brilliant blue. His eyes were tired, but there was still authority in every movement. Uncle, Miho said, bowing his head, I have brought someone to meet you. Daesung looked down at Juno, and Juno felt his knees go weak. He had never felt such power before, such ancient presence. This was a being who had lived longer than his entire village's history. This is a human, Daesung said. It was not a question. Yes, your majesty, Miho said. His name is Juno. He is a cook. The gathered dragons burst into incredulous chatter. A cook? A human cook? This was an insult to their king. But Daesung raised one massive claw, and silence fell again. He studied Juno with those tired, ancient eyes. My nephew brought you here to cook for me. Yes, your majesty, Juno managed to say, though his voice shook. I have tasted food prepared by master chefs from every corner of this world. Daesung said, I have eaten dishes that took years to prepare. What makes you think your cooking could be any different? Juno swallowed hard. He thought about running away, but Sora's words echoed in his mind. Purpose. He took a deep breath and found courage he did not know he had. "Because I do not cook to impress your majesty," he said. "I cook to comfort. I cook to connect. I cook because food is how I show people they matter. Your nephew told me you have lost your appetite because nothing moves you anymore. Maybe what you need is not something impressive. Maybe you need something honest." The hall was completely silent. No one spoke to the Dragon King like this. Several dragons looked ready to breathe fire at the disrespectful human. But Daesung did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a small, dry sound, like he had forgotten how to do it properly. "Honest," he repeated. "I have not heard that word used about food in centuries." He looked at Miho. "You truly believe this human's cooking might help me?" "I do, uncle," Miho said. "I tasted something in his soup that I have never tasted in our palace feasts. Something real." Daesung was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, a sound like wind through mountains. "Very well. I will try one bowl. But know this, human, if this is a waste of my time, if this is some kind of mockery, there will be consequences." "I understand, your majesty," Juno said, though he was terrified. "Show him to the kitchens," Daesung commanded. "Give him whatever he needs." As Juno was led away by nervous dragon servants, he heard the gathered dragons whispering. Many thought this was foolish. Some thought it was insulting. A few wondered if the young prince had brought hope or disaster into their halls. Juno wondered the same thing, but he had made a promise. He would cook the best soup of his life, and he would pour everything he had learned from his father and grandmother into it. He would cook with intention. He just hoped it would be enough. The Dragon Palace kitchen was enormous. Everything was made of crystal and gold, gleaming so brightly that Juno had to squint. The cooking pots were larger than his entire soup house. The knives were made of materials he did not recognize. Even the fire that burned in the massive hearth looked different, burning blue and white instead of normal orange flames. Juno stood in the center of this magnificent space and felt completely lost. A young dragon named Borum, who worked in the kitchens, watched him nervously. She had been assigned to help the human, though she clearly did not understand why. "What do you need?" she asked, her voice uncertain. Juno looked around at all the exotic ingredients stored in the kitchen. There were bottles of liquid that glowed, fruits that sparkled like gems, herbs that seemed to sing when the wind touched them. Everything was rare and precious and completely wrong. "I need simple things," Juno said quietly. "Simple things." Borum repeated, confused. "We have the finest ingredients from across the world. We have spices that cost more than entire villages. We have—" "I need vegetables," Juno interrupted gently. "Regular vegetables. Potatoes, carrots, onions. I need mushrooms if you have them. I need clear water from a natural spring. I need salt and maybe some herbs that grow wild. Nothing fancy." Borum stared at him like he had asked for rocks and dirt. "But those are common things. Ordinary. The Dragon King deserves the best." "The Dragon King needs a truth," Juno said. "And the truth is found in simple things, not elaborate ones." Borum did not understand, but she did as he asked. She brought him vegetables that had been stored away because they were too plain for dragon feasts. She brought him water from a spring that the palace dragons considered too basic. She brought him common herbs that grew on the mountainside. Juno looked at these simple ingredients and finally felt like he could breathe. This was familiar. This was honest. He rolled up his sleeves and began to work. First, he washed each vegetable carefully, taking his time. Borum watched him, puzzled by how much attention he paid to such a simple task. But Juno was remembering. He was remembering his father teaching him that every ingredient deserved respect. He was remembering his grandmother saying that cooking began with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered to the carrots as he peeled them. "Thank you," he said to the potatoes as he cut them. Borum thought he was very strange, but she kept watching. As Juno worked, something began to happen. The kitchen, which had always felt cold and perfect, started to feel warmer, not from the fire, but from something else. Other dragon servants began to drift toward the entrance, drawn by curiosity. Juno chopped the vegetables with steady, practiced movements. Each piece was cut with care, not for show, but because it mattered. He thought about Sora's garden, how she grew each vegetable with love. He thought about the villagers who came to his soup house after long days of work. He thought about old Hyun's smile when he took his first sip. He thought about Yunbai's laughter as she shared stories. He poured all these memories, all these feelings, into his work. The water began to boil in the pot. Juno added the vegetables one at a time, watching how they changed in the heat. He added salt just enough. He added herbs, the simple kind that reminded him of home. The smell that began to fill the kitchen was not powerful or exotic. It was gentle and inviting. "Why you cook so slowly?" Borum asked. "In the palace, everything is done quickly, efficiently." "Because this is not about speed," Juno explained, stirring the pot in slow circles. "This is about giving time to what matters. My grandmother used to say that soup knows when it is rushed. It tastes different when you hurry." More dragons gathered at the kitchen entrance now. They could smell something unfamiliar. It was not the overwhelming scent of rare spices or exotic ingredients. It was something simpler, something that reminded them of things they had forgotten. Some of the older dragons found themselves thinking of times long past, before the palace became so grand, when things were different. Juno tasted the broth and closed his eyes. It was almost ready, but not quite. It needed something more. Not another ingredient, but more time, more intention. He thought about the Dragon King, tired and empty after 3,000 years. He thought about how that must feel, to live so long that nothing surprised you anymore. "I am sorry you are tired," Juno whispered to the soup, as if it could carry his message. "I hope this helps you remember why living matters." Borum heard him and felt something strange in her chest. She had never heard anyone talk to food before. She had never seen someone cook with such focus, such care, in the Dragon Palace. Cooking was a task to be completed, but watching Juno, she realized it could be something more. It could be an act of kindness. Finally, after what felt like hours, Juno ladled some soup into a bowl, not one of the fancy golden bowls from the palace. He had brought a simple ceramic bowl from his soup house, packed carefully in his bag. It was chipped on one side, and the glaze was worn from years of use. But it was real. He poured the soup into this humble bowl and looked at it. The vegetables floated in the clear broth. Steam rose in gentle curls. It looked exactly like the soup he made every day in his village. Nothing special, nothing grand, just honest. "It is ready," he said quietly. Borum stepped forward. "I will take it to the Dragon King." "No," Juno said. "I need to bring it myself." The young dragon looked shocked. "Humans do not approach the throne without being summoned. It is forbidden." "Then I will break that rule," Juno said with more confidence than he felt. "This soup was made with intention. I need to deliver it with the same intention." Word spread quickly through the palace. The human was walking to the throne room carrying a bowl of soup. Dragons lined the halls to watch this strange sight. Some were angry, some were curious. All were fascinated. Juno walked slowly, carefully, making sure not to spill a single drop. His hand shook slightly, but he kept going. Miho appeared beside him, walking as an escort, giving him courage. The throne room doors opened. Daesung sat on his diamond throne, looking as tired and gray as before. The entire dragon court had gathered to watch this moment. The room was completely silent. Juno walked across that enormous hall, his footsteps echoing. He climbed the steps to the throne, each one feeling like a mountain. Finally, he stood before the Dragon King. "Your Majesty," Juno said, his voice steady despite his fear, "I have made soup for you." Daesung looked down at the small human, holding a chipped ceramic bowl. He looked at the simple soup inside it. After a moment, he spoke. "This is what you brought me? This is what you think will help?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Juno said, "because this is not made to impress you. This is made to remind you of something." "Remind me of what?" Juno took a breath and spoke words his grandmother had taught him long ago. "That food is not just fuel for the body. It is comfort for the spirit. It is connection between people. It is the way we show each other that we care. You have lived so long that everything has become meaningless. But some things should never lose their meaning. Care is one of them. The hall remained silent. Daesung stared at this tiny human, who dared to lecture him about meaning. Then, slowly, the Dragon King reached down with one massive claw. He picked up the small bowl, which looked like a toy in his grip. He brought it closer. The smell reached him first. Simple, clean, honest, not overwhelming, not exotic, just real. Daesung paused, and something flickered in his ancient eyes. Something that had not been there before. Curiosity. He took a sip. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Daesung's eyes widened. He took another sip. Then another. The entire court watched in stunned silence as their king, who had not finished a meal in 6 months, drank the soup. Tears began to form in Daesung's eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of feeling something after so long feeling nothing. He tasted the care in every spoonful. He tasted the memories Juno had poured into it. He tasted what it meant to matter to someone, even a small human he had just met. When the bowl was empty, Daesung looked at Juno with new eyes that saw clearly for the first time in years. "What is this called?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. Juno smiled softly. "We call it home, your majesty." The throne room remained silent as Daesung held the empty bowl in his massive claw. He stared at it like he had never seen such a thing before. The dragons of court watched their king with wide eyes, unsure what to think. Some had expected him to throw the bowl aside in anger. Others had feared he might punish the human for wasting his time. But no one had expected tears. Daesung set the bowl down gently, more gently than anyone had seen him handle anything in decades. He looked at Juno, and when he spoke, his voice was different. It was not the tired, empty voice they had grown used to. There was life in it again. "How did you do that?" Daesung asked. Juno shifted nervously under the intense gaze. "I only made soup, your majesty. The same soup I make every day in my village." "No," Daesung said firmly. "It was not the same. Food is just food. But what you gave me was something more. I tasted purpose in it. I tasted care. I tasted the reason why living matters." He paused, and a small smile appeared on his ancient face. "For the first time in 6 months, I am hungry, truly hungry, not just for food, but for life." The court erupted in whispers. Miho stepped forward, joy and relief flooding through him. "Uncle, does this mean—" "Yes," Daesung said, and his voice was stronger now. "I want to eat again. I want to feel again." He looked back at Juno. "Human, you have done what no dragon could do. You reminded me that even a mortal can forget the most important things." Juno bowed deeply, overwhelmed by the emotion in the hall. "I am glad the soup helped, your majesty." "Helped," Daesung laughed, and this time it was a real laugh, full and genuine. "You saved my life. Not my body, but my spirit, which was far more important." He stood from his throne, and his scales began to shimmer. The dull gray was slowly shifting back toward blue. "I want you to stay here for a few days. Teach me, not how to cook, but why you cook. Help me understand what I have been missing." And so Juno stayed in the Dragon Palace. Each day, he cooked for Daesung, and each day they talked. The Dragon King asked questions about human life, about why people found joy in simple things, about how Juno had learned to care so deeply about his work. "My grandmother taught me," Juno explained one afternoon as he prepared vegetables. "She said that we humans do not live very long. Maybe 70 years if we are lucky. So every day matters. Every meal matters. Every person we meet matters. We do not have time to waste on things that do not mean anything." Daesung watched him work, fascinated by the care in every movement. "Dragons are immortal. We have all the time in the world. I thought that was a gift. But watching you, I realized it became a curse. When you have forever, nothing feels urgent. Nothing feels precious." "Everything is precious," Juno said simply. "Even this carrot. Even this moment. Especially this moment, because it will never come again." These words changed something in Daesung. He began to notice things he had stopped seeing centuries ago. The way sunlight moved across the palace floors, the sound of wind through the mountain peaks, the taste of simple water. He ate every meal Juno prepared, not because the food was elaborate, but because it was made with intention. Borum, the young dragon who had helped Juno in the kitchen, asked if she could learn from him. Soon, other dragons joined her. They wanted to understand this human way of cooking, this idea that food could be about more than just ingredients and technique. On the 5th day, Juno told Daesung that he needed to return home. "My village needs me," he said, "and my sister will be worried." Daesung nodded with understanding. "Of course, but know that you will always be welcome here. You have given me a gift I can never repay." "There is one thing, your majesty," Juno said hesitantly. "Name it." "Come visit my soup house someday. Not as the Dragon King, but as a customer. See how humans live. I think would be good for you." Daesung considered this strange request. Dragons did not visit human villages. They did not sit in common soup houses. They did not pretend to be anything other than what they were. But then again, he had been doing things the dragon way for 3,000 years, and it had nearly killed him. "I will come," Daesung promised. "Once each season. I will visit your village in disguised form. I will sit in your soup house and remember what you taught me." Juno smiled. "Then I will make sure there is always a bowl ready for you." Before Juno left, Daesung made an announcement to the entire dragon court. "This human has taught us something important. We dragons have spent so long pursuing perfection that we forgot about purpose. We have built grand palaces, but lost the warmth of home. From this day forward, things will change. We will remember that power without meaning is just another kind of emptiness." The dragons listened, and though some were confused, others understood. They had seen their king transform in just 5 days. They had seen him eat again, laugh again, live again. If a human simple soup could do that, perhaps there was wisdom and simplicity they had overlooked. Miho flew Juno back to Hanul village. When they landed outside the soup house, Sora came running out and threw her arms around her brother. "I was so worried," she cried. "I am fine," Juno assured her. "Better than fine." Old Hyun and Yunbai came out to greet him as well, asking 100 questions about the Dragon Palace. Juno told them everything, though some parts seemed too strange to believe. "And the Dragon King really cried?" Yunbai asked with wonder. "He did," Juno confirmed, because he remembered what it felt like to care about something. That evening, Juno reopened his soup house. The villagers crowded in, happy to have their favorite place back. Juno cooked with the same care he always had, but now he understood even more deeply why it mattered. Every bowl was not just food. It was a reminder that life, however long or short, was worth living fully. 3 months passed. The seasons changed, and autumn arrived with its golden leaves and cool winds. One evening, an old man Juno had never seen before came into the soup house. He had kind eyes and moved with quiet dignity. He sat at a corner table and waited patiently. Juno brought him soup and set it down with a smile. "Welcome, grandfather. First time here." The old man looked up at him, and Juno saw something familiar in those eyes. Something ancient and wise and newly alive. "Yes," the old man said. "I heard this place served the best soup in 3 valleys." Juno's breath caught as he recognized those eyes. "I hope it meets your expectations," he said softly. Daesung, disguised as a simple old human, took a sip of the soup. It tasted exactly as he remembered, warm, honest, full of care. He smiled genuinely. It exceeded them. Around them, the soup house buzzed with life. Hyun was arguing cheerfully with his friends. Yunbai was helping a student with homework between bites of soup. Children laughed. Old couples ate in comfortable silence. It was ordinary and beautiful and full of meaning. Daesung sat among them. Just another customer. Just another person seeking warmth and comfort after a long day. No one knew he was a king. No one knew he was immortal. No one knew that 3 months ago he had wanted to stop existing. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Dragon King was not separate from life. He was part of it, and it felt wonderful. Juno caught his eye from across the room and nodded slightly. Dason nodded back. No words were needed. They both understood. This simple moment in this small soup house with these ordinary people was exactly what made life worth living. The Dragon King had learned to be hungry again, not just for food, but for connection, for meaning, for the simple joy of sharing a warm bowl of soup with others. And in learning to be hungry, he had learned to be alive. Outside, the first stars appeared in the evening sky. Inside the soup house, steam rose from bowls. People talked and laughed, and an ancient Dragon King sat among humans, finally understanding what it meant to be home. His appetite had returned, and with it, his love of life. The soup house door opened and closed as people came and went, each one bringing their own stories, their own hunger, their own need for warmth. And Juno served them all with the same care, the same intention, the same love that had saved a king. Because, in the end, that was what mattered most. Not power or immortality or perfection, but the simple act of caring for each other, one bowl of soup at a time.